Hello.
Hello.
Howdy.
Welcome to Hugo Girl, or as Lois Wright says, You Go Girl. A hilarious comedy podcast wherein we talk about Hugo Award-winning and Hugo adjacent and other things that are remotely related to sci-fi sometimes.
And maritime history.
And whales.
And horses.
I'm Amy.
I'm Lori.
I'm Haley.
Today we're talking about, among others, the 2012 Hugo Award winner for Best Novel by Jo Walton. But before we get to that, I believe Lori has her very favorite thing in the whole world.
I do. I do. We got a review. Just in time for this recording.
I wonder who it's from.
I'm not saying it was a birthday present for Lori, but
It did arrive on my birthday.
Did you pay someone, Amy?
I'll never tell.
Well, I choose to believe it's a sincere review. And it's from generic cat lady name. Excellent name. And it says, if you like smart, funny people sharing thoughtful discourse about Hugo award-winning books, and who doesn't, this is the podcast for you. I extra appreciate the detailed discussions. I'm listening to the 3-body problem episode right now, and it's helping me make sense of a very complex book. If you're debating giving this podcast a shot, I recommend that you find a discussion of a book you've read and dive in. I, a traditional book club hater, want to join this book club. Thanks, Amy, Haley, Lori, and Kevin.
Thanks, Amy.
Lori, Haley, and Kevin.
Thank you for that 5-star review. That made my birthday.
Thank you, generic cat lady name.
Who hates book clubs that we know?
I'll send you your money in the mail.
I've never been in a book club. This is my only book club.
This was the best book club.
I mean, if you're only going to be in one book club, Hugo nominated
It's true.
podcast.
And everyone that listens, this is our book club with you.
That's right.
Yeah, you have joined this book club.
It's true.
If you are listening, you're in the book club.
Welcome to our book club. Yay. Do we have any corrections, comments, anything?
I wanted to mention that the Hugo voting closes on August the 11th at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time.
So by the time you're listening to this, it might already be too late for you to finish a book.
But not too late to add us to your best fan cast ballot, or to just, put us near the top. I'm not saying it has to be the top, but near the top.
I'm going to go ahead and request that we go on the top.
I request 5th place.
Or, you know what? Here's the thing, too. Some of our listeners may not know that there is a rule where they may do no award if the category doesn't get enough votes as compared to the overall total votes. So even though lots of people are voting in the fan categories, as participation increases for things like Best Novel and very popular things like Best Dramatic Presentation, comparatively, people voting in the fan categories is down percentage-wise, even though plenty of people are still voting. So, past couple of years, certain categories have been just eking by with enough votes. So, I think even if you don't want to put us at the top of the ballot, I would rather lose to another nice podcast than lose to no award this year.
Yeah.
100%.
So,
Yes.
even if you have no idea what to do and you throw all of the podcast names up in the air and put them in order and then put them on your ballot in that order, I would prefer that to not voting. So, if you're a Hugo voter, please get your ballot in by 8/11 at 11:59 p.m. Pacific Daylight Time and vote for the fan categories. If you have no idea what to do, alphabetize.
Yeah. Starting with H.
Yeah, just vote for something. Or, sometimes people feel like they have to be very familiar with all the works that are nominated in a category. And I would say that's not the case.
That is not the case.
If you look at all 6 of the nominees for Best Fan Writer and one of them puts out work that you really enjoy, vote for that person, because in that vote counts in the category, and it helps ensure that the category does not get no awarded this year.
Can I just say that one of the things I learned while reading Jo Walton's
History of the
An
Hugos?
Informal History of the Hugos, that's the whole name, is that in the first years of it, it was awarded by a show of hands at the actual awards instead of any kind of nomination system or ballots.
I mean,
Cute.
I guess
It's
before
adorable.
the internet, yeah.
Yeah, it's adorable. People would just go, be like 40 people there.
We'd like
They'd all raise their hand for the thing they wanted.
Not even blind. Fascinating.
I know. Can you imagine? Oh, I'd be so mad if I looked around and nobody voted for us.
Oh, no, I would not like to see that. Although they do give you the voting data after the awards. So if
we
you're
can't-
feeling
we can know.
masochistic, you can.
But we
know.
can't look at them in the eyes and watch
Yeah,
them as
that's
they
true.
don't vote for us.
Right. You can't just watch in real time as your back is stabbed. Anyway, Hugo voting closes on August 11th. Please vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye. That's it. That's the podcast. Just kidding. Today, as I said, we're talking about Jo Walton's Among Others. It won the 2012 Hugo, the Nebula, and the British Fantasy Award, and it was a nominee for the World Fantasy Award. I think it's interesting that this book won the year that it won. It was nominated alongside Embassy Town, Leviathan Wakes, A Dance with Dragons, and Deadline. Those are some hefty nominees. That's a crazy ballot. And the fact that this little fantasy by a woman won is kind of delightful, frankly. I wonder how old George R.R. feels about it.
I never thought I would say this, but like, I think it needed more fantasy. It's like that quote from Woody Allen, like, the food's horrible in such small portions.
That quote needs to, I feel like, go to the Library of Congress or something, like, for posterity.
It's so applicable. But yeah, I definitely needed more fantasy in this book.
Your quote, that the book needed more fantasy.
Yeah.
Okay, so brief plot. I'm doing this in the style of if you went to Scholastic Book Fair and you were reading the blurb about it, this is what you would read.
I love that.
Yeah. Maury is a 15-year-old girl from South Wales who finds herself at an English boarding school for girls where she is decidedly a fish out of water. The story is told as entries in Maury's journal, where she chronicles her experiences with her odd family, her classmates, her first love, her beloved sci-fi fantasy book club, and every sci-fi fantasy book or story she has ever read or wanted to read. Brill!
I thought you were going to say, and every hot bun she ever bought was given or gifted somebody else.
Pretty normal stuff, right? Wrong. Maury has a special little secret. She can see and talk to fairies, or whatever they are, and she can do magic. In fact, magic is what got her to England in the first place. She and her twin sister, Moore, helped the fairies stop Maury's mother from doing some big magic to become an all-powerful dark witch. Her mother's efforts to stop the girls resulted in Moore's death and permanent injury to Maury's leg. Maury ran away and was sent to live with her father, who she had never met, and his sisters in England. The sisters, who turn out to be witches too, send Maury to the girls' school. Maury's mother continues to torment her, though, and Moore is lingering in the world of the living when she shouldn't. So Maury must eventually confront her mother again with the help of the fairies and get Moore to the afterlife. But the real magic is the friends we make along the way.
Yay! Good job, buddy.
Yeah, thanks. Goodies from Goodreads.
I want to go first.
Okay.
Oh, this one is so good. Generally speaking, this book is fine. I like to sort by the 1 stars because that's where the goodies are.
Right.
And E on Goodreads, and I just took one little paragraph, but it's so good and it's so true. This book is basically one big play-by-play of all the books this adolescent girl reads. Actually, no. There's also a play-by-play of how she gets these books. Which ones are from the library? Which ones are interlibrary loans? Which one her father buys for her? Which one she buys for herself? Which one someone loans her? It's exactly as interesting as it sounds.
There's no lie.
My dad sent me 10 pounds. It's time to go to the store.
Ooh, she got all them books. She got
Interlibrary Loan really is the hero of this book.
It totally is. Okay, I've got one from Goodreads. It's a 1-star review from Andreas, and I'm going to paraphrase a little bit of it to save time. It's a guy recounting a conversation he had with his wife about the book, and he said he was embarrassed to be reading it because his wife said, quote, "That's a girl's book," because the dust cover was pink. So first, he's embarrassed and his wife is hassling him for reading a girl's book. And then he goes on to say, quote, "The book starts pink and is already very masculine in the 2nd chapter, but it continues and ends in a very teenager girlish fashion. Not my thing at all." Sir, pick a position. Is it a girly book? Is it masculine? Are you embarrassed or are you not?
Is he protesting too much about the not being into teen and girls stuff? I don't know.
I read a similar quote that was like, I'm a 35-year-old man. Having never been a woman, I could never understand this book. Like, welcome to everyone's life.
Do you have empathy at all?
Yeah, most books I read are not written by a 39-year-old woman. I still read them.
I mean, let me tell you how many books I have read about men.
Mim's that time we read Ender's Game and had to know what it was like to be a 6-year-old genius little white kid
who's naked all the time.
Yeah. And I say this as a lady who loves men's books and men's adventure fiction. So it's just really, he's like, I can't, like, it's like some men just use it as an excuse to not engage with something, and it's just ridiculous.
Or if they do, they're homosexuals, Haley.
Reading that pink book. No homo, though.
I like that pink book. No homo.
Also, what about the wife being like, why are you reading a pink book? Ma'am.
Internalized misogyny.
No kidding. That might be my misogynist moment. Anyway, that's what I got.
My favorite goodies from Goodreads is the fact that at some point I gave this book 3 stars, and I don't know when I did that.
I saw that today, and I was like, ooh, this will be fun.
I know.
because you had
did
read
that
it before.
The first time I read it. I don't remember doing that. I also don't remember when I first read it, but I do know it was given to me by my very good friend, Evil Wood. Hello.
Oh, so that's a man that likes this book.
He loved it.
Well, obviously men liked it. It won the Hugo.
Yeah, touche.
C. Conrad gave it 2 stars on Amazon and said, meandering through the 70s, we find an inconclusive expose on magic, love, a family coven, and also physical therapy.
Every appointment, we're there with her.
And then Axiom Lind gave it 2 stars on Goodreads if you take the book at face value, but 5 stars if, among others, is the tragic story of a brain-damaged and, as a result, delusional girl told through the eyes of the girl herself. Her injury from a car crash that killed her sister has made her believe that all the things she believed in as a small child, fairies and magic, are true. The protagonist, as an unreliable narrator, gives the reader an inside perspective into what it is to develop delusions, megalomania, and a paranoid persecution complex.
Is this a horror novel?
I do like the theory that we can't trust the narrator.
Although Jo Walton has addressed that.
We're going to get that. We're going to get to that, yeah, for sure. Okay. Dive right in? Yeah. Let's start with the geek nostalgia aspect of this book, if you don't mind. Because you mentioned, I'm pointing at Lori, listeners, that you kind of saw it as a Ready Player One kind of thing.
I did. I will say I do not care for Ready Player One. And I think that Ready Player One was much more of like, here are 42 songs that were popular in the 80s and just listed them. So I think it has a similar character in that she's referring to all of these things that she likes, but she tells us about them or she tells us why she's reminded of them. So for me, this works a lot better than all the media references in Ready Player One, which I truly recall as mostly just lists. But it did certainly put me in mind of that.
I think what Ready Player One had going for it that this one does not is that it also had kind of Easter eggs in the plot that were very like video game plot. Like,
yeah.
They were callbacks to video games specifically. So the plot actually had that kind of thing.
So I would miss that as a reader since I'm not
I only
a video
know that
game
because
person.
I read reviews of it after.
Yeah,
I read
and
it.
why I loved Ready Player One is because I love those 80s references in those movies and those books. Whereas, like, I hadn't heard of half the books in this, and a lot of times she's not really she'll give you a sentence maybe, and it'll be like, I really liked Glaze of Idols, and I'm like, okay, cool.
Glaze of
I don't know, it's like 1 million books that I haven't heard of. Like, I would recognize some. Like,
Is that like Blaze of
Cumberland? No, but yeah, I mean, I could see where like listing things gets old for anybody, but I at least knew every reference in Ready Player One, whereas in this I didn't know half. So.
Do you think she was trying to wrestle with what was going on in her life by talking about the books rather than talking about it head on, or do you think it was solely supposed to be just like a catalog of?
I mean, I think she loves sci-fi, and she probably did all this when she was young, I would imagine, and she loves them.
I'm talking about Maury, not the author.
Oh, I can't. It's hard to like separate the two almost.
It's true.
I think so, Amy. And so this is something that struck me. I was reading this book. I started reading it too soon, and I was like, I'm going to finish it too soon. I'm not going to remember it. So I put it down, and I wanted to read a horror novel. So I borrowed My Heart is a Chainsaw by Stephen Graham Jones from the library. And
The library?
from the library.
Does it close on Saturdays at noon?
I don't know. I just do ebooks. Actually, I don't know.
That's right.
But I thought I was reading something really different because it's basically like a slasher film in novel form. It follows a teenage girl. She's obsessed with slasher movies. And I finished My Heart is a Chainsaw. Lots of murder, lots of violence, lots of blood and guts. And then I picked this back up and I just had this moment where I was like, oh shit, these books are really similar. They're both about teenage girls with truly wretched parents who just immerse themselves and disappear into the media that they love. And so in My Heart is a Chainsaw, the main character, her name is Jade, and she's a little older than Maury. She's like 17. And she is constantly thinking about and comparing things to plot lines in slasher movies because her parents are awful and her life is pretty bad. And it's really similar. even though they're really different. And this is like a quiet, contemplative book. And so I think so the reason I bring that up is that I absolutely think that's what's happening. I think it is easier for her to relate to things that are going on in books. I think it's easier for her to look at her life and compare it to something that's happening in a book rather than really necessarily confront what's going on.
Yeah, I think she's a compulsive reader and escapist. So she's got some very traumatic things happening in her life, so it makes a lot of sense. And even if it wasn't super traumatic, she has that thing that a lot of smart, awkward girls have, that like they don't feel like they fit in. They feel like they're an alien amongst these other girls. Like this happened to me. I mean, I did the same thing. I was a compulsive reader when I was in high school, and it was the same thing. You look at your life through the lens of these books because it's just easier than looking at it head on, I think. But man, she lists a lot of books.
Yeah. I think it's, I don't know, like every day before middle school, I would pick a different Star Wars book and bring it and read it all day at school. So like I get, it's like a little extra, I guess. Like
but you could have listed every Star Wars book and all of the like authors and all of the everything.
There are certainly worse ways to cope with a lot of trauma than reading a shit ton of science fiction.
For sure.
Yeah. I mean,
I'm kind of proud of her for disappearing into
there was no
Heinlein.
Yeah. There was no internet. Like, it seems like there wasn't much else to do. So
yeah. So I was reading Jo Walton's Informal History of the Hugos at the same time that I was reading this, and it was really interesting to read those side by side because this book was written in like a month or two in like 2008. So she wrote it a while back. It was largely autobiographical, she said. I think the way she put it was the bad things are autobiographical, the good things aren't.
Oh God.
Yeah, there's an IO9.
Ooh, that's bleak.
There's an IO9 AMA that she did that I want to link in the show notes because really any question you have about this book, she answers it basically. But so she wrote that, and then it got published in 2011. I think during the process of publishing it, a lot of things kind of changed in the book. And so she did this series of blog posts on Tor.com through 2010 and 2011 that eventually got put together in an Informal History of the Hugos. So the Informal History of the Hugos is all those blog posts and then a selection of comments from more knowledgeable people to the blog posts, and then a couple of like little essays on select books that she talks about. And reading it is like, I feel like Maury grows up to write this. Like all of her opinions about the books are Maury's opinions. Like one of my favorite lines from Informal History is echoed in Among Others, where in Informal History she says, "I don't like Dick, but a lot of people do," and she's talking about Philip K. Dick. But I cannot believe she did not know that was funny when she wrote it.
Yeah, there's that thing that's like people say like write what you know, and like there's no way she didn't live this life.
This is absolutely. Yeah. I mean, and she has said outright that she had a traumatic upbringing and that she disappeared into books, and that's exactly what she was doing. So it was just really interesting to read that alongside this because it was like, oh, this is Maury grows up to be Jo Walton.
Yep.
It was funny.
I still will never be able to understand what an A level is. Like I don't get the concept.
I looked it up because I cannot tell you how long I've been reading British books about British adolescents, and they talk about O levels and A levels.
Even in Harry Potter, it's like studying for your owls.
I know. I just took it at face value and went off my life. But this time I looked it up. So O levels are basically your high school graduation, like classes. They're like general knowledge type things. A levels, you pick specific. Now, British people, if I get this wrong, please email us at hugogirl@podcast@gmail.com.
They will.
A levels, you pick a specific subject. You pick 3 specific subjects, and you take basically graduate level tests on those. It sounds a little bit like international baccalaureate or like AP or something, but you actually take a test. You get a grade, and then that dictates what school and what field of study you can go into.
Interesting.
So some fields of study, if you're going to go into a specific thing, they'll have specific A levels you have to do in order to go do that. So A levels are like the
LSAT.
It's like
GRE.
like O levels you kind of have to do when you're going through high school, but A levels are optional.
Okay.
If you want to go on to college, basically.
Okay.
So does that mean when you're 18 you have to know what you want to do? I guess.
Kind of.
Yeah. That sucks.
Or at least you have to know what you want to start doing.
Yeah.
I mean, imagine like anything. But that's why she gets so excited in the book when she talks about American colleges, because you can go to American colleges and study whatever you want. Like you can take a little bit of everything. And she's like, imagine. I'm like, nobody has ever talked about the American education system in such glowing terms.
It's so expensive. There's so many bad schools.
But yeah, that's an A level. So Wim doing his A levels outside of school is like not insane. It's just this extra thing you have to do anyway. So, okay. The magic system in this book. I want to talk about magic.
Please explain it to me.
Let's talk about magic, kids. So, Maury is magic, or she knows how to do magic. She talks to fairies. Her mom's magic. Her sister is magic, I guess.
So we hear.
Was.
R.I.P. R.I.P. Moore. She thinks her aunts are magic. That's about all the magic people, I think. But, so the magic system in this book is basically possibly created coincidence. It's very hard to pin down what magic is in this book. It's like you can affect things by your feelings or something. It's hard to say.
It's not a very fun magic.
Well, she said, okay, yeah. You'll hear say something.
Oh, well, I like this aspect of it. I like that it's unclear and that it's even unclear to her. And the reason I like it is she's constantly wrestling with whether or not her magic has made a thing happen. And I think part of the reason that she's wrestling with it is because she has a hard time believing that she deserves anything good. So when something good happens, she's like, is it unfair that I'm having this good thing? Do I deserve these friends? Does this cute boy really like me? Or did I just magic it? And so it's actually really deeply sad. And so the fact that magic can be something that occurs unintentionally, just based on your will or your hopes, I think is very interesting. And it sets up this opportunity for her to continue to shit on herself, which she does a lot of shitting on herself. And that makes me sad. And I really like Maury, and I want to like wrap her up in bubble wrap and make her a cuppa, even though she doesn't like tea.
She's not like
so
tea.
I would,
She
I
only
would
wants to
get
drink
her
water.
some water,
Lori.
some water and a nice bun. But yeah, I really like Maury. And I think that basically everything she's grappling with is because of her hurts. And so the way the magic system is interpreted gives her another opportunity to always be questioning whether or not she deserves a good thing that happened to her.
And the only person she's seen use it powerfully is trying to hurt her.
Yeah.
So,
Or control her, the ants.
yeah. What do you think of the magic, Haley?
I didn't understand it at all, and I think there should have been more of it.
So do you think that she's delusional?
Possibly.
Okay.
I've been reading a lot about it because
Yeah.
I got no magic from this.
A lot of people.
Yeah, because like the fairies, like they don't speak English, and like no one can see them. Like
And the only person who sees anything outside of her is a guy who's trying to get in her pants.
Yeah, and like I needed more overt magic, even though I hate to say that.
Yeah, so Jo Walton has talked about, and again, this is in her IO9 thing.
Can I push? I don't see Wim just trying to get in her pants. I think she'd be
If you're reading
more
it
than
that
happy
way.
to share her pants.
I mean, I don't think not necessarily.
Well, one thing I read was that it's her telling us what Wim says he saw. So we don't actually hear from Wim.
That's true.
She tells us that Wim said that he saw it. So if we think she's an unreliable narrator, then we can't trust what we know of Wim.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Jo has said she did not make her unreliable on purpose.
So yeah, I mean, I don't necessarily think she's that unreliable. I got no magic from this book. Like, I kept wanting to be like, yeah, like, okay, let's see these fairies. Let's like. And
so you just don't believe her when she sees
the fairies.
You see the fairies, so you just don't believe that she sees them?
No, I mean, I didn't get magic from this book. So,
well, one thing I think is interesting.
at least not enough for me to be like, this is a magical book. Like she'll go and like sit in a green space, and she was like, oh, I think I saw one on the corner of my eye, and then like. This one has, I don't know, it's
certainly very understated from what we, as compared to what we normally see in a book that has magic. There's no spell casting. There's more of just intentions, will, focusing thoughts on things, imbuing objects with your intention.
I liked the way she talked about objects and how they can acquire magic through fondness.
Yeah, that was cute. You know, like the weird statue that my grandpa likes is
and she kind of summed up why I like old things, I think, because she said, you know, when things are all new, it's just you're just sort of all rattling around near each other with no connection. But then when there's old things around you, they can sort of build connections, and I thought that was really cool.
Yeah, no, and I totally agree with Lori's. Like, you know, it's an excuse for her to, you know, be down on herself. But like, I like my magic like in the movie Teen Witch or like Harry Potter, like very overtly, like I did a magic.
I pointed a wand at a thing.
Like you want a magic spell.
Yeah, like if I'm gonna watch like fantasy, which I don't like, I want it to be as fantasy as possible.
Jo Walton has said that she got asked in her little IO9 AMA if she likes urban fantasy, or she got asked something about urban fantasy, and she was like, I hate urban fantasy. And she said her reasoning was kind of like, it's hard for her to suspend her disbelief when they're talking about magic in the here and now, because she's like, if it existed here and now, I would have seen it by now. Like, do they think I'm an idiot? If it existed, we'd see it. And so she just can't.
Interesting that she would say that.
Yeah, so she just can't suspend her disbelief about it.
Yeah, because hers is like suburban fantasy.
Well, she said that she
in the
specifically created, since she wanted to put this book kind of here and now, here and now than, the Sword of Shannara or whatever. So the way she put it was really good. She said that the magic system she put together for this book is meant to be both deniable and non-falsifiable. So you can't prove it exists or prove it doesn't exist.
She did a good job of that, yeah.
And then she said she wanted something that could actually be happening in the cracks. So it'd be easy to miss, but if you knew it was there, you could see it, right?
Yeah.
Which I think, if that was her goal, I think she did a pretty good job.
For sure, yeah. And I like the idea of fairies hanging out in like green spaces overtaking like decaying urban ruins. That was cool. I wanted to see like a conversation. I guess I'm a skeptic, I guess. Like I would want to see like an actual conversation.
Like you and ghosts.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah. Like I want to see you talk to a fairy, but like have that be like more than just like love.
Doing is doing.
Yeah, no. It was very Gertrude Stein the way they talked.
She does have to do a lot of work to have a conversation with a fairy.
Yeah, and I guess I kept thinking like I would have been happier if they were ghosts. Like I like a ghost. Like
so, Wim floated that idea, which I thought was an interesting idea.
Exactly, and I was like, because like he's trying to make.
And we
sense
don't know what they are. They could be ghosts.
Well, and I have such prejudice against fairies. Like I don't know what it is.
All right, let's psychoanalyze Haley's hatred of fantasy.
I'm not ready for this.
I don't think I'm ready for this.
So
This is a 60-minute show. Just a reminder.
All right.
We've got a hard stop.
We'll do a special episode wherein I psychoanalyze Haley's hatred of fantasy.
I just don't care about fairies.
It's so funny.
Yep.
But you're okay with the witches in Harry Potter. What about Dobby?
And the Force.
That's not a fairy.
I still think there's a difference
magic
in the Force.
system.
The Force is mainly like a Zen meditation thing.
That's what this is. I feel like this is feelings magic, like the Force is.
People say that, but I disagree.
Fantasy.
Star Wars and fantasy. All right, fine. So you don't think she did magic? You think the book club just existed?
Yes.
Does it matter?
I mean, I think you can believe it. I mean, if you want to believe in magic, you can be like, yeah, she made a karas or whatever. What's the word?
That's right.
From Slaughterhouse-Five or from Cat's Cradle, I think.
Yeah.
No, I don't. I think there was just a book club of people and it was great. So.
What about Wim's experiment where he goes out with another girl and
Man, all right. We've brought up Wim a few times. So I just want to say, I don't like Wim.
I don't like Wim either.
We've all dated Wim.
Uh-huh.
And I took down a quote from Maury where she says, "He was rarer than a unicorn, a beautiful boy in a red checked shirt who read and thought and talked about books. No, ma'am.
He's the guy in your MFA class.
Listen, we can walk 2 blocks from my house, go into any bar, and find dozens
not a unicorn.
of beautiful boys in red check shirts who at least pretend they read. They definitely talk about books. I mean,
but they've all read Infinite Jest.
Man, it's like you reached into my heart and pulled out the exact right book. You just Maury'd that. That was the perfect book for that reference. But, she's 15, so I forgive her.
Yeah.
He's the first boy she's really ever seen. And I'm happy for her that she's getting some attention that meets some needs for her from a boy who's beautiful and does like to talk about the same books as her. I hope she outgrows him quickly.
Well, Jo has some thoughts on this.
But I almost made my misogynist moment that Wim tries to mansplain about her to fairies by arguing with her that they have to be ghosts. I'm like, sir, you just found out they exist. She's grown up with these weird tree bark dog people.
There's no way she could know more than him, though, Lori.
Oh my God. He's so annoying, but he's not like mean or anything.
He's just a guy.
He's cute. He likes the same books. He also openly likes her, which I think is important, especially for her. I think it is important that he publicly and openly is like, I like you. I want to hold your hand in front of people. And I think that's good. He's definitely Mr. Right Now.
And yeah, she's 15. Like, it shouldn't be her forever love.
Right. But I think that even though I don't like him,
I wouldn't choose him for her. I would choose Hugh, but that's just me.
I think that he does meet a lot of her immediate needs, and I'm happy for her about that.
Sure.
Yeah. I had no problem with him, but I also have never dated a man, so.
This is where you start.
Yeah, he's everybody's first love in high school. He
seems nice to her.
He's like the archetype.
He is basically nice to her.
They were trying to take her elf stick.
Yeah, I was like, she needs it to walk.
Can I have this? What, sir? like she has. So to the listeners, she has this cane that the elf made her out of himself, I think.
It's all carved and nice.
It's all carved and nice, got a horse head.
She feels very stable with it. Stable.
And it's all nice. She loves it. And so when he touches the elf stick, he can see the fairies. And then she walked there with the stick. And he's like, can I have this? Do you have another one? She's like, no, the fairies made it for me. And I need
And he's like, no, they didn't. The ghost.
Oh
did.
my God, whim. I have one of my talking points is fucking whim.
Yeah.
Fucking whim.
Yeah.
Fucking whim.
Hey, listen, he could, as we have often said, he could be worse.
Jo says she's got all of their futures mapped out until they're about 90 years old.
Oh, dear.
And that by the time 1990 rolls around, Wim and Daniel both betray her in different ways while she's in university. Wim goes to her aunts and asks them to teach him magic, and they sort of do, but they also sort of colonize him the way they did Daniel. So I think Wim does not last forever.
Good.
I am certain in my heart she ends up with Hugh.
See, I don't
or
remember.
just someone else.
I mean, she's going to. She's 15.
Yeah.
Jo says she marries someone from the book club.
Oh, God.
So, and then while we're on the subject of fucking men, fucking Daniel.
Oh, thank you. Okay, my first bullet point is Daniel is the elephant in the room.
Jesus. Okay, so Daniel is Maury's dad.
Biological dad.
But she does not call
Biological
dad.
father. She calls him Daniel because he left when she was a baby and never came back. Now, it sounds like her mother is a real piece of work, so I don't know if him leaving is that in and of itself necessarily makes him like a bad dude, but he also had no contact with his children that entire time. And then she ends up staying with him after she runs away from her mom. And what does he do? One of their first nights together, Lori?
Well, he comes back from the bar very drunk and tries to get in bed and kiss her, is what she says. And she pushes him away, and he goes away, and then we just
She kind of likes it?
Well, her internal monologue is very
it's
troubling.
so strange.
Yeah,
It's awful.
well, it's part of how she thinks she doesn't deserve anything good, so she was like, at least someone likes me.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah,
So I think like she kind of likes it as maybe not.
There was something she said that made me think.
She said it made her feel good that someone wanted her.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe that
As
was
she
it.
said, as broken as I am, which is
yeah.
also an absolute tragedy.
How is she broken too? Like, I mean, she has a bad leg, but like, I wonder.
Yeah, I mean, I think she feels, she talks a lot about how much she misses running and being physically active, and she's in pretty constant pain, which is intense anyway, but really intense for someone who was 15 and was probably bursting with energy. And she's also lost her twin, who she really considers the other half of herself. It seemed like they were very enmeshed. And so I understand why she views herself as broken. And it's another thing that's just so deeply sad, where she's like, oh, well, I guess at least someone can want me.
Ugh.
And I'm like, in a way,
Daniel.
the fact that she has enough agency to say no to something that she knows she does not want. I was happy to see that, which is not to suggest that if she hadn't, there would have been, she wasn't doing anything
No, but
wrong.
I'm glad she did. and
Anything she did in this situation, she didn't do anything wrong.
Yeah.
Right.
But like, I just felt like this is a nice book, and that happened, and then the whole rest of the book, like, Daniel's a pretty decent guy, and
We never talk about it again.
we never talk about it. And I have been grappling with this because I feel like it is probably reflective of the life experience that I don't know if Jo Walton had, but many people have had.
I think it's probably autobiographical.
So I struggle being mad at the book because I think it's portraying something that has happened and can happen, and I think people deserve to see their life experiences reflected in books.
Yeah.
And yet, the whole time I was reading it, every time we had a nice interaction with Daniel, I was deeply worried that something bad was going to happen immediately after.
But then he was just sort of milquetoast after that.
Totally.
Yeah, like,
Like
I
he
saw.
was a nothing burger.
Apart from that episode, I've seen an episode that he was a bad dad. I mean, like, who knows why he stayed apart? I mean,
Well, so that's the other thing is like the other parent she has is her mother,
who's objectively bad? So
who's
like,
objectively bad.
maybe she kept him away. Who knows? Like,
Well, so there's magic happening, allegedly. So the aunts and the mother are both doing stuff, possibly. So, and Daniel is just at their whim, it sounds like.
Daniel does
So
not have a strong will.
It's hard to say whether he stayed away because he's a bad dude or if he stayed away because of that.
Or both.
We just don't know. But the mother, I'm a little uncomfortable with the mother situation too because
she tried to murder them.
well, it's because of what Jo Walton has said. She said having an actual evil mother, or in scientific terms, a paranoid schizophrenic mother, gave me a useful knowledge of evil.
Oh.
I know, and it's
Jo,
it's.
I'm gonna get her a cup of water and
She
a
said
bun.
her mother really did send her pictures where she'd burned her out of them, and like she said there were other things she couldn't even put in there because they happened in real life, but they sound too far fetched for a book.
Oh God!
Like the mother showing up at the boarding school and just yelling curses outside of her window and like just being awful. So I don't know. She's got two bad parents. Daniel ends up being the lesser of two evils, despite what he did. It's just very strange.
I mean, yeah, it's heartbreaking and it's very strange given the overall tone of the book.
Yeah.
But again, like people's lives are like that.
And she talks about all of her traumas so matter-of-factly.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not out of character. Like the way she tries to detach and observe it
Yeah.
isn't out of character.
The reviews that I read that were like, this is all in her head, or like she got into a car crash and this is how she's like making sense of having, because like there's no reason that no child deserves to have shitty parents. And so,
Right.
like, if you make your mom into a witch, like, that makes it easy to be like, well, she's objectively bad. I did nothing wrong. I didn't deserve this. This is how I deal with it in my head. So,
Oh, yeah, that's a good point. If you can just be like, well, she is evil.
yeah, she's a witch. It's not
Yeah.
just like I just have a bad mom. She's evil. Like, that's fine. Which
That
to
makes
me-
a lot of sense.
And that makes more sense in my head because I'm not predisposed to, like, believing in magical type things. So, like, and this wasn't as over the top magical as Harry Potter is, which I do like. And I do like the magical aspects of that. So, like, I think even the last scene, which I didn't quite understand, I was like, she gets hidden by trees. I don't know. Like, I just
I
didn't
have issues
understand
with
it.
the last scene too.
Yeah, but I think to me, I just really grabbed the idea that like her parents were just awful, and this is how she makes sense of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I go with what the author says. If she says, take this at face value, I take it at face value. But I think you can do both. You know, you can take it at face value and also you can see how a child would process their parents' abuse by putting them in a box of evil character. This is an evil character. You know, it's not just that my mom didn't love us or
Yeah.
my mom made bad choices. My mom's an evil witch. So, of course, these bad things happened. And so I think, as my therapist so often says, it can be both.
Yeah.
Two things can be true.
So
The first time I read it, I thought there wasn't enough magic too. I was so confused by why were there even fairies in it? Why'd they even talk about magic? Because it doesn't seem to have anything to do with what's going on in the book. But this time around, I think on a much more psychological level, it makes a lot of sense to me.
cool.
I don't know. I'd say give it a couple years and try again. Because that's what happened to me. And I think now I would give it 3.5 stars.
Oh, it would have a whole half star.
It sure did. Lori, would Auntie Teg and Grandpa have been able to adopt Maury?
Oh, listen, this whole book, for those who don't know, my expertise is family law. I have handled many, many complex, yucky, drawn-out custody cases. And every page of this book, I was like, Auntie Teg, please call my office. Please call my office. We will get custody. Because she thinks about that. Maury talks about, as far as the law is concerned, the people who raised me are nobody. And I mean, that very well may have been true in 1979 in Wales. I don't know. But in Atlanta in 2022, I will go get that baby.
Oh,
And she would be living with her auntie by the time I was done.
Good.
Yeah, we can help with that now.
Okay,
I don't know
good.
what that looked like then, but we could help with that now.
Daniel's no count.
No. It sucks. It's complicated and it has every right to be complicated because life is complicated. Daniel brings so many good things to her life. Like she gets first of all, she has money. She's not dealing with financial insecurity. She's not living with her mom. He has his support, and including his financial support, has opened up an opportunity for her to deepen her relationship with the science fiction community. So there are so many good things that come from this relationship with him. But man, the incident, it just looms.
The incident. At least he never tries it again.
well, and there's just no excuse.
Love.
There are so few taboos in our society. That is like the number one.
She's
Can you
also not
just-
living with him.
Can you
so-
just not do this one thing?
Yeah, can you?
Daniel?
And like even
Can you
animals
just not
kinda
do
get
this
it.
one thing?
It's just when I read that, it kind of made me just. So I try to like if I ever pick up a book at a bookstore and like the flap is like a Holocaust survivor, a genocide. I'm like, nope, not reading that. And I just don't. And I know that people do need to have their truths reflected in fiction, but like I don't necessarily want to spend time with that just because it affects me on a deep level, and it, I'll think about it for 5 days straight.
It was
So,
certainly unexpected in this
Yeah.
book too.
there was no trigger warning.
Ugh.
I had a quick question that is not deep, but I love the idea of houses, and everyone knows that I'm a biological Ravenclaw. So if you had to choose between Scott, Keats, Wordsworth, and Tennyson, I would be in Keats because he was just like fucking dramatic and I loved him.
I think I'd go Tennyson. He's a little highbrow. Kind of into him. Alfred, Lord Tennyson.
I don't know. Pass.
Not a romantics fan.
Well, actually, I took 3 semesters of British romantics, so
none of those guys speak to you.
I mean, probably I did like Keats. So
I like
probably
Keats a lot,
Keats.
yeah.
I don't think I know anything about Scott.
No, I don't even. What's his first name?
Is it
Walter?
Which Scott? Sir Walter Scott?
Sir Walter Scott?
I thought okay, this is embarrassing, but my first thought was F. Scott Fitzgerald, and then I was like, wait, we're not.
That's like Ivermorny or whatever.
Wrong continent, middle name.
But I did like to see that what J.K. Rowling took from English schooling was real, like the idea of houses and like getting points for like 20 points to Keats. I'm like, yay.
So one thing I read as a sort of mile high description of this book was that it was an inverted Harry Potter, because she's a magical person going to a non-magical school and being separated from her abusive magical family and going to her, I'm not going to call them not abusive because in some ways they are, but her less abusive. No one's tried to murder her.
Yeah.
Side of the
just
family.
withholding.
And so she's she's plunged into a non-magical world.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Did you guys feel like the teenage diary rang true? Did it sound... Did it sound like it? I thought some of it was very good. It's like when she's very dramatic and she says things like, "From now on, I'll be positive about sex." It's like, well, okay.
Yeah. All right. So that is a good segue. So
oh yeah, special segment.
Like Moore, I kept a journal from 2001 to 2004, 2005 actually.
What was your age range in there?
17 to 23.
Nice.
So yeah, so it was a live journal, but like I've never been terribly anxious. It was more just like a physical diary of I
had poetry in there,
oh,
girl.
No. Mine was just like a collection of events. It was like a diary. So August 18th, 2001. I've been at UGA in the dorms. I'm a freshman for about a week. Last night was fun. Met some cool people. Went to a sneak preview movie at Tate Theater. Oh, a modern update of Othello. It wasn't bad. Tried a little too hard to be symbolic and they nixed the ending, but it was cool. Slept late this morning, went to lunch with Chris, who I haven't seen since I've gotten here. Marching band has pretty much consumed his entire life. Then me and Beth, my roommate, went to Walmart and got school supplies, fruit, and a futon. We're still trying to put it together. It's hard as hell.
And then I read Zelazny.
No.
I like, how very dare you not identify with this book because you have written this
Well,
book.
I like parts of this book. I don't necessarily like the magical part because I don't think there's enough of it. And I also
just like her diary.
Realism doesn't always make for good reading.
Well, true. And I definitely relate to keeping a physical recollection of events and things that I did. And like, for me, it wasn't science fiction books. It was, so I spent a lot of my young adulthood at the radio station. So it'd be like, tonight I played Elastica and Slater Kinney and Latigra and Bikini Kill. And so I saw that a lot. But like, so yeah, that's a little glimpse into 18.
It's cute.
Yeah. I'm glad that I have that. Like, it's 20 years old now. So.
I wish I had something like that.
It's cute. Okay. Let me pull up the dad one. All right. This was from April 1st, 2002. My dad sent me a card with a Starbucks gift card in it for like $10, even though I prefer Blue Sky or Jittery Joe's. It's still a cool thought. I do enjoy a Frappuccino every now and then, and 2 alone are close to $10, so it's a nice idea. So yeah, I wrote, among others. It just didn't have any magic and it wasn't quite as sad.
This reminds me that so she keeps talking about book tokens in this book.
Book tokens? I don't remember that.
So her dad will send her a book token or people gave her a book token for Christmas or something like that. It came out a couple times.
Yeah.
So I was like, what the heck's a book token? So I looked it up. Guys, in England, people can give you a book token and you can spend it at any bookstore.
On any book?
Yes.
Is it like a $5 book or a $12 book?
Because some
Like
books
it's
are
like having a gift certificate, so you can go use it towards a book.
But some books are like $30.
Yeah, you don't get
some
the book
books are
for
like
free.
$5.
It goes towards the price, like having
So it's like $5.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
But you could use it anywhere.
At any bookstore.
Just books.
I wonder why that exists. Interesting.
I don't know. I think it's a private company, and I guess they have but this existed for a really long time. I was
Fascinating.
floored.
It's funny how different their culture is.
Britain, I want to live in you. Okay. Feminist faith?
Can I laugh for a second?
Oh, yeah, sorry.
About they were in the book group and they had this conversation about writing a story about a secret society that manipulates all of history, and they're like, who could do that? And they're like, the Catholic Church. And then someone else was like, maybe the Knights Templar. And I was like, is Jo Walton like making jokes about the Da Vinci Code? Because she wrote this in like 2008, so the Da Vinci Code was out. So I was like, is she like retconning that all these little kids like made up the Da Vinci Code in 1980? It's so funny.
Oh, cute.
Oh, it is magic. They manifested it. I see you, Jo Walton. That is cute. I love it.
That is cute.
I really like this book. We're not there yet, but I really like this
I just
book.
liked it just now.
Yeah, I think it's really cute.
Okay, feminist fave.
I had two potentials. Maybe her recognition at the point where she's making out with the boy when she goes back to her hometown, and then it's sort of the reverse of what I normally expect, though. Like, he's touching her and she's enjoying it, and then he freaks out and calls her a slut when she moves to touch him, which I usually think boys are the opposite.
Yeah, I did not understand that encounter at all.
But I mean, I don't think you're supposed to. I think, doesn't make sense because that's life. But she says that she recognizes that apparently girls are supposed to put up resistance. And she says, quote, the whole thing is sick and I want nothing to do with it. And I thought to myself, you go, girl.
Right on, girl.
And then the other one was, I was pretty amazed that in 1980 she could just go get on the pill by herself.
Easier then than today.
He was tutting her a little bit.
Very funny. He pursed his lips, but was like, all right,
fine.
Yeah, that was nice.
Mine was when Maury fucks politeness and yells at the lady in the bus station who accuses her of faking being on her cane.
Oh, I forgot about that.
I was so mad at that lady. I also really liked Maury's feminist radicalization when she's talking about the difference between Daniel and her mom and dad parents and mom parents. And she says, how interesting that what comes out is doing the best he can in a man looks like neglect in a woman.
Amy, that's my misogynist moment.
Interesting.
Yeah. Haley, go ahead. You go.
I have a hard time finding feminist favorites in books with female characters written by female authors because, like, there's so many moments of agency.
We just get to be people.
Yeah, I was like, so I try to find, like, more elaborate ones. I guess, like, beating her mom in a wizard battle. That's what it was. So, yeah.
But, standing up to her mom. I mean, that's a big deal.
The end of the wizard battle is my misogynist moment.
Oh, really? Yeah. Well, maybe you could explain it to me. So,
all right, tell me your misogynist moment, Lori.
Okay.
So you were just talking about it.
My misogynist moment is what you described as your feminist favorite. So Maury goes to see a production of The Tempest where a woman plays the character Prospero, and she says, I read him as a man who is remote and good to bother with a toddler. But a woman like that would be too unnatural for sympathy, which isn't to say I think women should be stuck with child rearing, but how interesting that what comes out as doing the best he could in a man looks like neglect in a woman. And Amy, when you said that out loud, you certainly like said it with a sarcastic tone of voice, and I didn't read it that way.
Interesting.
I thought like she's so close to identifying a double standard, but kind of stops just short of it. And I think she'll get it eventually. I mean, she's 15. I think she'll get it eventually. But the way
years ago.
Yeah, and the way I was reading it was that she was sincerely like, I just can't like this character as a woman, but I think the character is fine as a man, because I think she's internalized that. Yeah. And it made me wonder if that's why she's so forgiving of Daniel.
I had forgotten about the context of the them turning Prospero into a woman in that play. And so like I think you're probably right. Like she doesn't quite see why she doesn't like the character as a woman.
I think she'll get there. She's on the precipice of getting it. And I actually think that's very well executed by the author, because
baby feminist.
Obviously the author gets it. And it's like she smells something is wrong. It feels wrong to her. She can't quite put her finger on it. And she's like, I don't like this. And I think at a point she's going to understand why she doesn't like it and realize that that's fucked up.
Oh, double standards suck.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think it will become a feminist favorite. But for right now, there's a little internalized misogyny there.
What was your misogynist moment, Haley?
There's a couple of times when she talks about lesbians that bug me.
Oh yeah, I agree.
I don't like that stuff.
I have that in the fantasy food.
Yeah, I mean, like, it's one thing she's like, yeah, they don't bother me, but, like, there's a couple times she's like, the baths are like a lesbian dream house. Like, no, stop. It kind of reminds me, like, there's a lot of lesbian jokes in 30 Rock, which I love, but it's like, we're an easy target. I get it.
A little low-hanging fruit.
Yeah. So
I felt the same way about how her classmate who had a crush on her throughout the rest of the book is sort of characterized as a B-list villain.
Yeah, because she rejected her. I was like, come on.
I was like, that feels sort of like Mean Girls. Like, why are you so obsessed with me?
Well,
like,
yeah,
and like
the lesbian archetype is like masculine in a lot of ways. She's like, she likes science, and she's like set apart and like ostracized a little bit.
I saw that too.
I was just like, cool.
What's I guess I read that thinking it was probably something that happened to Jo Walton, and so
Yeah, I'm sure it was. Still sucks to see though.
like her perspective. I'm not necessarily saying that it's. I'm not.
But yeah, but like I'm
writing,
and
but
and I'm sure like in all girl boarding schools, like St. Vincent, I'm sure had lesbians.
we sure did.
Go ahead.
Can I say something that reminded me of? She has the one friend who's Jewish, and she spends so much time opining about the mysteries of Judaism. And I was like,
the food Jew?
The rice Jew.
Rice Jew.
Yeah.
will you go to the library and get a book on Judaism and stop
Right?
speculating wildly? Like, I'm sure even if the school library doesn't have anything, you can go talk to Greg, do an interlibrary loan,
Yep.
get some books on Judaism. So I was kind of like, Maury, you're like very curious about this. And normally when you're curious, you go get a book. But instead, she just does some wild speculation about her Jewish friend. And it didn't feel great to me.
I guess that's what it was like when you didn't have the internet at your fingertips. You would have these sort of musings that would go through your head, and you'd write them down, and then you'd never come back around to them.
Yeah, and I'm 100% on board with the musings. Like, we all have thoughts that we wouldn't want people to read in a book. But also, like, Maury's character, she goes and gets books when she wants to know something.
She's an autodidact for sure.
So I am, I feel like a little, I'm not mad, but I'm disappointed. Or like you could talk to your friend. You could be like, oh, tell me about your food traditions or whatever. But there's just a lot of like sort of speculation that doesn't feel
She
great
doesn't
to me.
have any friends in this book, really, besides the book club boys.
She almost had friends. I have a whole
And
thing about
Deidre.
that.
Yeah.
So one of my misogynist moments is that she chooses Wim over Janine. But also my misogynist moment is that her Trinity, that she calls it, at the end of the book. So she has this fight with her mom. Strangest fight.
Yeah.
And then she ends the fight and she goes to the bus, and getting off the bus are her trinity of men. Her dad, who's a piece of crap.
Oh, yeah.
Her boyfriend, who tried to steal her magic. And Sam, who seems objectively good. Her, but
Bio grandpa.
it's like
Who she
her
has met 3 times.
other grandfather. Yeah, like
Yeah.
and we can't, like, this girl has met no women that could possibly fill this role, which is
She doesn't like any of the women around her.
maybe realistic. Yeah, but I mean, I definitely had going through high school, I think I sought approval and the company of men more than women. Like, I was taught not to trust women, so I did not in high school.
Who taught you that?
There's tons
Well,
of
we're-
manufactured competition between
Yeah,
women
it was
and
it was
girls.
that. It was
Yeah.
that. And like so I get why there might not be women on the bus, but man, those particular guys, and to call them the Trinity, come on.
Oh, I didn't remember her saying
Yeah.
the Trinity.
I was so mad about
I
that.
was too let down by the ending to be like, oh, that's it. Oh, fuck.
It's the father, the son, and the boyfriend who insists fairies are ghosts.
the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Oh, God. Ugh.
Wait, the Son is Wim. Wait, is
Well,
the
I was going to say the father
Son-
is Sam, the son is Daniel,
Oh.
and then Wim is the one who insists there are ghosts. It's like a very, very overwrought Father, Son, and Holy Ghost joke. Sorry.
Boob talk. I can't believe you don't have a boob talk.
Well, I just didn't
Oh,
think
there was
that.
the talk of like
There's a bunch of
adolescent
boob talk.
I didn't think, but I think boob talk is categorically male gaze, and I
Yeah.
think Maury ruminating on her
Yeah, I agree.
budding breasts in a not Dan Simmons way is not boob talk.
I agree
But
with
only
that.
because she's wondering if they look funny, which is for the male gaze.
I don't know.
It didn't stand out to me like bobbling like pomegranates in water.
She did say, she said the word jiggle a lot in that particular.
Well, as somebody who got boobs weirdly in a weird way, like I was like, yeah, this is weird.
I did like the line, it would be nice to have a harness to get them out of the way.
This is why, unlike every woman I know, I wear a bra until I go to sleep at night.
I wear bralettes these days to sleep at night. I just want them out of the way.
Yeah, it
Oh,
you gotta
man.
support them.
Oof.
Okay, fantastical food. You guys.
Did you know she likes buns?
I love it. I also like buns. It's like when I go to Sweet Hut and I'm like, wow, I guess 5 isn't too many.
I do like, she said, so this is where I put the lesbian talk, was bun exchange is part of the fantastic food. Giving a bun to someone who is not in your house or form is, quote, deeply suspicious and possibly lesbian. Which I think would be a great title of your sex tape.
Deeply suspicious and possibly. I would hope it'd be absolutely lesbian, but who knows?
Or the title of my sex tape.
We are going to see Amy Ray.
That's true. That's true. There was some cheesy mushroom and onion dish that she
Yeah.
made with Auntie Tag.
I was just amazed at how much she hates everything she eats.
I was trying to find the things she
The
liked,
school
which was
food
the
sounds
She
disgusting.
did like the
though.
buns.
Oh, I love institutional food. Give me like boiled vegetables.
When I studied at Oxford, I ate at their, I forgot what they call it. There's a name. The food was not good.
She does keep saying the English are not known for
This
which
is
is
true.
very
tastiest. She says Auntie Teg makes the best cauliflower cheese, and I wondered what is cauliflower cheese.
Is it cheese made
Well,
of cauliflower, or is it?
Question. Now it's like difficult to Google because the gluten-free lifestyle. I have nothing against it.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
fine,
Okay.
but it has sort of ruined cauliflower cheese as a search term.
Yeah.
But so I asked the internet. I said, friends across the pond on Twitter, and what is cauliflower cheese? Is it just cauliflower and cheese? And guess who got looped in?
So many people
Jo
responded.
Walton. Jo Walton
really?
herself. What? Yes, Allison Scott from Octothorpe, which should also be at the top of your ballot for best fan cast, our delightful friends. Yeah, Allison tagged Jo Walton.
Oh, wow.
And cauliflower cheese is basically macaroni and cheese, but instead of noodles, it's cauliflower.
Sounds good.
And it's like cauliflower and cheese. It's a bechamel. You know, it's not just cauliflower and cheese.
Yeah,
It's like
yeah.
a nice cheesy bechamel, which you can't go wrong pouring a cheesy bechamel over
If
anything.
cauliflower agreed with me in any way, I would try that. Yep.
Yeah.
Oh, I would eat that.
Other things she enjoyed included, well, she ruminated a lot on the grapes at the hospital.
Oh, what is that about?
But
Must
I
be a
don't
British
know.
thing.
I have the same question she has. Why do you bring
Easy
grapes to the
eat,
hospital?
Maybe no matter what position.
They're kind of a
hydrating.
choking hazard if you're
hydrating.
lying down.
And then Wim brought her astronaut ice cream, which I thought would be Haley's love language in a hospital setting.
That was really
I
cute.
did think that was cute.
That was cute.
Wim is not all bad. He just kind of sucks.
I thought he was great.
He's okay. He's Mr. Right Now.
Well, it's again, but she's 15. Like, who would say otherwise?
I know.
Did you guys know about 12th night cake? It sounded like king cake.
No, but that's probably what it is.
Yeah. And then,
Sounds like a technical on Bake Off.
But like,
it should be.
Maybe it has been.
I just have bun overload. Like
So many buns.
Every third. Like,
I love it. So,
So
they
many
like
buns.
show friendship by exchanging buns. It's like
It's supposed to, it's also is exclusionary. though.
totally.
Yeah.
Yes. It's like in high school when you could like buy a Valentine from the
Yeah.
school store and
Yep.
have it delivered.
Toxic,
and,
toxic.
It really is. It's buns is an instrument of ostracization.
yeah.
The only other thing I wanted to tag was the Hawaiian Delight / Hawaiian Surprise, which was a dish of set custard with half a walnut or half a glacé cherry in the middle.
Awful. Half a cherry. I share Maury's disappointment with the food at this school. What's half a walnut?
Let me tell you.
The whole walnut.
I think why I didn't like that part is because I like all food. And so when I used to work in downtown Decatur, I worked next to a hospital and I would go get their meat and 3 lunch.
Oh, I remember that.
And one,
knew the lunch lady.
The lunch lady gave me a hug. And second, the food was not great, but I kept going. And Lori knows this. Like, if something tastes bad, I'll keep eating it to get to the bottom of it.
Except for Turkish Delight, you were like, I don't need to know.
Yeah, no. But, like, it takes a lot for me to not like, 1, a movie, and 2, most food. Like, I can get anything down. So, like, me and my family, like, we like to go to, like, a Morrison's or, like, an S&S. Like,
Listen, there's a lot to be said for an SNS.
Yeah.
Soap stuff.
Is she Morgana or is she Morwenna? Does it even matter?
I was
don't know.
confused by that.
Does anyone know?
I thought she was more Winna, but then they both go by the same name. Yep. Also, I was entertained that she went by Maury towards the end because it kept making me think of Memento Mori. Like she's a remnant of somebody who's dead.
English major.
Right? A long lost twin who could maybe come back is pretty soapy.
Yeah. I
Oh,
mean,
totally.
yeah.
And which one is she? And does she even know? And does it matter? I mean, I was thinking about it. I was like, if you're born at the same time, you have basically the same name. Like, how do you know who you are?
She insists, after she sees Moore wandering around as a ghost, that she understands now that they were different.
Yeah, that's totally growth. But I'm saying like she could take either birth certificate and walk
It's
into
true.
the DMV and be
It is
like,
true.
it's me.
She could have 2 identities going for the rest of her life and nobody would know. Did you like the book?
I really liked it.
I would have liked this book a lot more if it was just marketed as a book about being an English student. But marketing it as a fantasy book did not work for me.
But there's fairies in it.
Exactly, but I didn't like the fairies and there weren't enough of them. But I do enjoy a glimpse into a daily life of somebody from a different time period in a different place. And there's things that I have in common with the main character, as we just learned from my recounting of my days as an 18-year-old. But some things disturbed me in it, and that was kind of hard. But yeah.
It made me wish we had trains.
Yeah, I just...
Oh, trains.
Yeah, to me, it doesn't seem to fit in with every other book we've read, which doesn't make it bad.
Yeah, it's definitely an outlier.
Yeah.
Outlier. I'm still on the fence. I'm telling you, 3.5. I can go both ways.
That's a solid
I liked
B.
it more this time around. I think the pacing is really weird. I don't love
It's
the
slow.
end.
It's a cozy, quiet book, like Lori
Yeah.
said. I mean,
I think Maury starts out really strong, but as it goes along, she kind of loses a little bit of her like boldness. So, like I think it's honestly kind of in connection with whim in a way. Like she sort of just, I don't know. I don't like how she grows in some ways. Which maybe is that's just the result of getting older. I'm not sure, but
being a teenager
and like going into the world, and
we
like,
do get worse before we get better.
That's true. So I'm not sure I love her character the whole time. Maybe I'm not supposed to. I don't know. 3.5 stars.
I read a Goodreads review. A part of it was like, this is like the lesser sequel to a more interesting first book.
I was just going to refer to exactly that review.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I was going to talk about if we had time was if we like the setup of this book. Like we come in after the big thing has happened.
It seems more interesting. Or at least I would want both.
Yeah.
Because like they're two very different novels, yeah.
Like this big thing happens and we never see, and then we just sort of see the aftermath. And she has that line about Tolkien understanding what happens after the ends of things, which is like if you read The Lord of the Rings, like there's this whole part at the end about what happens after they defeat Sauron, and it's like there's no happily ever after. Like more crap happens. So I do think that's interesting, but it's upsetting that we don't see the big important thing. In a way,
I like just spending time with her, riding around, seeing her day. I just felt like this was different from anything that I've read.
Yeah.
And so I think it's definitely an outlier among the books that we've read for the podcast. And I guess I just was like, okay, what are we going to do today? What bun are we going to eat? Yeah. And for whatever reason, I think I like her writing a lot, so that kept me engaged with it.
Yeah,
I think
she's a good writer.
I do like her writing a lot.
In the hands of a lesser writer, I would have been like, I don't give a shit what you ate for lunch. But I was like, oh, you got Chinese food today. Great. It was delicious. And I also appreciate Maury's resilience. And, like I'd said earlier, there are certainly worse ways to cope than getting really obsessed with science fiction.
Smarter.
And there was a part toward the end that really struck me when Wim was all worried about her and he was like, oh no, you're going to do a dangerous thing. And she reflects to her diary that there are people who think that there are dangerous things like Wim. There are dangerous things and there are safe things. And then there are people like her, and I identify with this, who recognize that everything is dangerous, and the idea that there are safe things and dangerous things is a myth. And I'm not saying that that's true, but I share that perception, and it was meaningful to me to read her say that. Because, I just don't think you often see people, like, spell that out like that. And I was like, she's, I feel like I'm being read here.
Well, it's a privileged perspective to have.
Yeah. And
because you have a place of safety if you think that.
Well, and the interesting thing is that, like, when you are in a place where you don't really feel safe, you put a lot of work into. I've been to a lot of therapy to like try to be like, yeah, I'm at work and it's fine and I'm safe. But at the same time, always in the back of your mind, I'm like, but I'm really not. Like, very bad things have happened to me in places where I should have been safe. And so you work to regain that sense of safety, but at the same time, you can't forget the things that happen. And so I'm like, am I just tricking myself?
Right, because it's not like that didn't happen.
Exactly.
So you have to reconcile that.
Exactly. So I think she articulates it really well. And so in a lot of ways, I identified with this character. And I think that the writing is great. So I would give it 4 out of 5, I think.
I love how many unusual perspectives you get in this book. Like, she's disabled. She's a 15-year-old girl. She's got a hard childhood that she's coping with, and she's largely on her own. And like, you do not get that in a lot of places. And so I'm glad this
being
exists.
so into sci-fi in a world that Star Wars had just come out. Star Trek was on 15 years in the prior. Like, it's just, sci-fi is only cool now. It was not cool in the 70s. It wasn't cool in the 90s when I was reading it. Like, it's now like socially acceptable to like sci-fi, but it wasn't for a long time. So
she said that in the AMA. She was like, someone asked her some question, and her response was like, back then it just didn't exist. Like, there was not a lot of fantasy. Otherwise, it was sci-fi, and a lot of the sci-fi was in magazines. It wasn't, at that point, I think there were books, but largely had been magazines before that. So you had to seek it out. You had to know what you were looking for and seek it out. And yeah.
I like the nostalgia of what's available at a bookstore, too.
Yeah.
You can't go online and order all the books in order.
Yeah. You're like, oh, a new one.
Well, and it reminded me of how people got mad at us for reading Barayar first. But if you go to the bookstore, you buy what's there. You may not be able to get all the books in order.
That's true.
And so I think there was probably more of a tendency to try to write standalone books, too, so that people could pick up whatever they got at the bookstore and purchase it and read it and enjoy it, and not necessarily have to have read everything in order.
And mush together short stories, so that if you're going to buy one paperback, you'd get like the
disjointed
whole
themes and plot.
But you'd get all of that line of stories, even if it was weird. Yeah. Star Wars or Lord of the Rings, guys?
Well, I love that that's a running theme through this book.
It is. Would you rather meet an elf or a Plutonian?
It's so funny. I love it.
Like, it's a question.
I don't know which way I'd fall on that, frankly.
It's clearly Lord of the Rings, and this phrase shocked me. She goes, we must have been 8 because I remember freely translating what they said into purist Tolkien. Purist Tolkien. Ugh. No, thank you.
Yeah, I think I'm going Lord. Although she's on a little bit of a hero's journey. I know Amy's going to be like, hero's journey. She's on a little bit of a hero's journey.
And she's got her like posse.
I think it's Anne of Green Gables.
I've never read that.
What is that about?
It's about a orphaned girl who goes and lives in a new place, and she feels othered by the people around her, and she
Aw.
falls in love with a boy, but she
here for it.
doesn't know if she can trust that he loves her because she feels so awkward.
So this one's not Star Trek to you then.
it's Anne of Green Gables.
I'm here for it.
Okay. Next time we are reading. No,
We're not reading.
In fact, no.
Oh yeah.
We are watching Jupiter Ascending.
We're taking a month off.
We're taking a month off because we're going to go to Chicago in the beginning of September, and we want to read some of the
For
nominees.
Worldcon.
and
Yeah, you'll
that
see
kind of
us
thing,
there,
so-
hopefully.
Yeah, so we're going to watch a movie and talk about it, and it's ridiculous, and I can't wait.
I have seen this movie at least 5 times, and I love it.
I love it so much.
It's so silly.
It's the silliest movie.
I don't think
So
it
good.
won any awards except for maybe a Razzie.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, Eddie Redmayne won a Razzie for worst
he
actor.
whispers through it all.
Yeah. Okay, so that's what we're doing.
Don't forget to vote.
What's the last day?
August 11th, 2022.
That's us.
Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye, y'all.
Today we're talking about Among Us.
Among others.
Doing that. Can we start that again? Among Us is a game.
There's our blooper.